They called them traitors, November criminals, enemies of the state, but walk into any German cemetery from 1919 and count the fresh graves of politicians, union leaders, revolutionaries, blood in the snow, bodies dumped in canals, executions disguised as suicide. Between 1918 and 1922, 354 government officials and political leaders were murdered in Germany, not by foreign armies, by their own countrymen. Who were these dead? Why did opposing the war make you a target for death? And how did a democratic republic become a killing ground? November 9th, 1918. Kaiser Wilhelm flees to Holland. World War I ends with 2 million German soldiers dead and a nation in collapse. The Social Democratic Party takes power under Friedrich Ebert, but in the chaos, two groups emerge from the wreckage. Anti-war socialists who want revolution, and right-wing paramilitaries who want blood. The Spartacus League forms around Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht. Both had spent the war in prison for opposing the slaughter. Both had watched their party, the Social Democrats, vote for war credits and betray everything they stood for. Now they want workers, councils to rule Germany, Soviet republics in Bavaria and Berlin, the end of capitalism forever. If you value documented Viking and Norse-era history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. The script is researched and factual. Using sources from the German Federal Archives and specialist studies like Klaus Epstein's Matthias Erzberger and the Dilemma of German Democracy, published by Princeton University Press in 1959, and Sebastian Haffner's The Defeat of the Revolution, Germany, 1918 to 1919, published in Berlin in 1973. Now back to the information. But Ebert has other plans. He cuts a secret deal with General Wilhelm Groener. The army will support the new republic. In exchange, Ebert will crush the left-wing revolutionaries, enter the Freikorps, disbanded soldiers, veterans with nothing to lose, right-wing paramilitaries funded by industrialists and former officers. They have names like Marine Brigade Ehrhardt and Guard Cavalry Schützen Division. Their job is simple: kill anyone who threatens the new order. First blood comes in January 1919. Berlin workers march through the streets. The Spartacist uprising begins when Police Chief Emil Eichhorn gets fired for being too radical. Rosa Luxemburg thinks the timing is wrong, but supports the workers anyway. For 6 days, revolutionary forces occupy newspaper buildings and key points in Berlin. Then Gustav Noske, the Social Democratic Defense Minister, unleashes the Freikorps. Street fighting kills 150 to 200 people. But the real target is the leadership. January 15th, 1919, 8:30 at night. Freikorps soldiers find Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht hiding in an apartment in Wilmersdorf, out in western Berlin. They drag them to the Eden Hotel on Kurfürstendamm, headquarters of the Guard Cavalry Schützen Division. Captain Waldemar Pabst is in command. Both prisoners are interrogated, tortured. Then the killing begins. They take Karl Liebknecht out first, age 47, son of a founding father of German socialism. The man who stood alone in the Reichstag in 1914 and voted against war credits, a rifle butt to the head, shot in the Tiergarten Park, his body delivered to a morgue as an unidentified corpse. 20 minutes later, Rosa Luxemburg, age 47, the brilliant theorist who wrote The Accumulation of Capital, the woman who said, "Freedom is always and exclusively freedom for the one who thinks differently." Soldier Otto Runge strikes her skull with his rifle butt as she leaves the hotel. Blood pours down her face. They bundle her into a car, one shot to the head, her body weighted with stones, thrown into the Landwehr Canal. She will not be found for 4 months, but the killing spree is just beginning. March 10th, 1919, Leo Jogiches sits in Moabit prison in Berlin, age 51. The Polish revolutionary who co-founded the social democracy of the Kingdom of Poland and Lithuania. Rosa Luxemburg's former lover and lifelong political partner. The man who kept the Spartacus League alive while its leaders rotted in prison during the war. After Luxemburg and Liebknecht die, he takes over the Communist Party. He investigates their murders. Within weeks, he publishes the names and photos of their killers. The German courts have never done as much. Police officer Ernst Tamschik enters Jogich's cell, one shot to the back of the head. Death while attempting to escape, they claim. Tamschik is never put on trial. The man who solved the murders of Germany's most famous revolutionaries is himself murdered for knowing too much. South to Bavaria. A Soviet republic rises from the ashes of the monarchy. Kurt Eisner, the independent socialist leader, is assassinated in February 1919 by right-wing officer Anton Graf von Arco of Valley. But the revolution continues. On April 6th, anarchists and communists declare the Bavarian Soviet Republic. Writers and dreamers like Ernst Toller and Gustav Landauer try to reshape society. Commissar of Education. Gustav Landauer writes to a friend, "If they give me a couple of weeks, I hope to achieve something, but it's possible it will only be a couple of days. And then all a dream." His pessimism proves prophetic. April 13th. Communist Eugène Leviné seizes power from the anarchists, age 35. Born in St. Petersburg to a wealthy merchant family. A doctor of economics who joined the revolution after seeing the October Revolution in Russia. He organizes a Red Army of factory workers, expropriates luxury apartments for the homeless, seizes private weapons and food supplies, calls a general strike. Lenin himself sends congratulations from Moscow. The liberated working class is celebrating its anniversary not only in Soviet Russia, but in Soviet Bavaria. May 1st, 1919. Freikorps, units under General Ernst von Oven, assault Munich with 39,000 men. Flamethrowers, heavy artillery, armored vehicles, aircraft. The street fighting is brutal. At least 606 people die. 335 are civilians. When the resistance collapses, the retribution begins. 1,000 to 1,200 communist supporters are executed without trial. Gustav Landauer is beaten and shot by a mob of soldiers. Age 48. The anarchist philosopher who dreamed of progressive schools and free museums, his body trampled in the mud of a prison courtyard. Eugène Leviné is captured on May 13th. He stands trial in Munich. The court calls him a foreign interloper in Bavaria. Death sentence, June 5th, 1919, executed by firing squad in Stadelheim prison before he dies. He gives a speech that echoes through history. "We communists are all dead men on leave. Of this I am fully aware. I do not know if you will extend my leave or whether I shall have to join Karl Liebknecht and Rosa Luxemburg, but the terror machine keeps grinding." By 1920, the Freikorps officially dissolve. Their core members form Organisation Consul, a terrorist group funded with leftover government money meant for the disbanded paramilitaries. Their targets are anyone who signed the armistice or supports the new republic. Their methods are assassination. August 26th, 1921. Matthias Erzberger walks through the Black Forest spa town of Bad Griesbach with his friend Karl Diaz, age 45, the Catholic Center Party politician who signed the Armistice of Compiègne on November 11th, 1918. The man who ended the war, the finance minister who introduced progressive taxation to pay Germany's war debts. The right wing has branded him a November criminal, a traitor. Two men approach with revolvers, Heinrich Tilson and Heinrich Schultz, both former Imperial Navy officers. Both members of Organisation Consul. Shots to Erzberger's head and chest. He leaps down a slope trying to escape. 3 more bullets hit his lung, stomach, and leg. The killers follow him down and fire again. Karl Diaz staggers back to their hotel, bleeding from a chest wound, to report the murder. Matthias Erzberger dies in the forest dirt. The man who saved Germany from a worse peace has paid with his life. The killers escape to Hungary. They will live free until 1946. After World War II, American forces arrest them. The first trial acquits them based on a 1933 Nazi amnesty law. Public outrage forces a retrial in 1947. Tillerson gets 15 years. Schultz gets 12. Both are released on license by 1952, June 24th, 1922. Foreign Minister Walter Rathenau drives through Berlin in an open car, age 54. The brilliant economist trying to rebuild Germany's shattered economy. The Jewish industrialist negotiating reparations, payments to the Allies. He knows his religion makes him a target. 3 Organisation Consul assassins fire a machine gun and throw grenades. Rathenau dies in the street. His killers escape, but 2 are hunted down and die in shootouts with police. The numbers tell the story. Between 1918 and 1922, 354 politicians and government officials are murdered in Germany. The list reads like a roll call of democratic leadership. Ministers, deputies, union leaders, mayors, prosecutors, and journalists. Most killers come from right-wing paramilitary groups. Most escape justice. The courts give harsh sentences to left-wing violence, but ignore right-wing terror. Bavaria's anti-Weimar government openly supports the assassins. Industrial money funds the death squads. Behind these statistics lie individual tragedies. Hugo Hasse, co-leader of the Independent Social Democratic Party, shot outside the Reichstag building in October 1919. He dies from his wounds a month later. Emil Eichhorn, the police chief whose dismissal sparked the January uprising, survives multiple assassination attempts but lives in constant fear. Paul Hirsch, first Prime Minister of Prussia, faces so many death threats he requires permanent bodyguards. The terror extends beyond famous names. Local union organizers disappear from their beds at night. Their bodies turn up in rivers or shallow graves weeks later. Factory workers who organize strikes find their homes firebombed. Socialist newspaper vendors are beaten unconscious in broad daylight. The message is clear: support the Republic and die. Women face special brutality. Communist activist Matilda Jacob, Rosa Luxemburg's secretary, receives death threats daily after surviving the January purge. She helps smuggle documents out of Moabit prison that prove police involvement in the murders. For this crime against silence, right-wing gangs hunt her through Berlin's streets. She escapes to exile but never returns to Germany. The geographical pattern reveals strategic thinking. Industrial centers like the Ruhr Valley see waves of assassinations targeting union leadership. Port cities witness attacks on socialist dock workers. Mining regions experience terror campaigns against strike organizers. The killers target the economic base of left-wing power with surgical precision. Regional variations show different approaches. In Bavaria, the terror operates with official support from the state government. Minister-President Gustav von Kahr provides legal cover for paramilitary activities. Local police refuse to investigate right-wing crimes. Courts acquit obvious murderers on patriotic grounds. The entire Bavarian state apparatus becomes a safe haven for assassins. In Prussia, authorities make more effort to maintain law and order, but they lack the resources and will to confront the terror networks. Police forces remain understaffed after massive demobilization. Many officers sympathize with the paramilitaries as fellow veterans. Intelligence services focus on left-wing threats while ignoring right-wing violence. The institutional failure runs deep. International connections complicate the picture. Hungarian authorities shelter German assassins fleeing across the border. Austrian groups coordinate with organization consul cells. Russian emigre networks provide weapons and training. Even some Swiss banks launder money for paramilitary operations. The terror has global reach and sophisticated logistics. The victims' backgrounds reveal the breadth of the assault on democracy. Not just famous politicians, but ordinary citizens who believe in the Republic, teachers who support democratic education, doctors who treat workers for free, lawyers who defend political prisoners, priests who preach social justice. The paramilitaries target the entire civil society that sustains democratic government. Medical records document the brutality. Erzberger's autopsy shows 9 bullet wounds plus massive trauma from the rifle butts. Rathenau's body contains 20 machine gun bullets and shrapnel from the grenade explosion. Liebknecht's skull is fractured in 3 places from the beating. These are not quick assassinations, but deliberate torture designed to terrorize potential opponents. Psychological warfare proves as effective as the physical violence. Threatening letters arrive at government offices daily. Mysterious phone calls wake politicians at midnight with death predictions. Coffins appear on doorsteps with names already engraved. The message penetrates every level of consciousness. Abandon democracy or join the body count. Press coverage varies dramatically by political orientation. Right-wing newspapers celebrate the murders as patriotic acts. Headlines praise the elimination of traitors and cleansing of German soil. Liberal papers report the facts, but avoid investigating the networks behind the killings. Only left-wing publications dare to name the industrial sponsors and political protectors of the terror machine. Financial records reveal the scope of private funding. Steel magnate Hugo Stinnes transfers millions of marks to paramilitary organizations through shell companies. Coal baron Otto Wolff maintains slush funds for patriotic activities that purchase weapons and safe houses. Even small businessmen contribute to local terror cells through trade associations and veterans or groups. The Catholic Church maintains official neutrality, but many priests sympathize with the nationalist cause. They conduct funeral masses for assassinated paramilitaries while refusing services for murdered Republicans. Some monasteries provide sanctuary for fleeing killers. The moral authority of religious institutions reinforces the political legitimacy of violence. Educational institutions become battlegrounds for competing ideologies. Right-wing student groups attack socialist professors in lecture halls. Nationalist fraternities recruit from paramilitary organizations. Even some school teachers indoctrinate children with anti-Republican propaganda. The future generation grows up believing that democracy equals national humiliation. The international business community watches nervously as Germany descends into chaos. Foreign investors withdraw capital from a country where finance ministers get assassinated. Trade delegations cancel visits to cities where political meetings end in gunfire. Even allies begin to question whether the Weimar Republic can survive its own citizens. Hatred of democracy. Organization Consul is officially banned in July 1922 after Rathenau's murder. They simply rename themselves the Viking League and continue operations. Key members join the early Nazi Party. The SA stormtroopers recruit from Freikorps veterans. The SS absorbs Organization Consul members. Adolf Hitler's bodyguards, Julius Schreck and Joseph Berchtold, both served in the terror groups. The plan works exactly as intended. provoke the left into uprisings, crush them with overwhelming force, murder democratic politicians, create chaos and fear, destabilize the Republic until people beg for order, any order, even fascist order. In 1933, President Hindenburg signs an amnesty law clearing anyone who committed political murder in the Weimar Republic. The killers of Erzberger no longer face prosecution. The murderers of revolutionaries are declared heroes of national resistance. The terrorist campaign that began in 1918 finally achieves its goal. Democracy dies. The Nazi dictatorship rises from its grave. The continuity between Weimar terror and Nazi rule becomes unmistakable. Hermann Göring appoints former Freikorps officers to command SA units. Heinrich Himmler recruits Organization Consul veterans for the SS. Even local Nazi officials often come from paramilitary backgrounds. The men who destroyed democracy with bullets become the administrators of dictatorship. The institutional memory of violence shapes Nazi methods. Concentration camps follow the model of Freikorps detention centers used against revolutionaries. SA street fighting tactics come directly from Organization Consul training manuals. Even the coordination between official police and unofficial paramilitaries replicates the Weimar pattern. The Nazis don't invent political terror, they systematize and expand existing practices. Financial networks established during the terror years channel money to the Nazi Party. Industrial leaders who funded Organization Consul write checks to Hitler's movement. The same Swiss banks that laundered paramilitary money handle Nazi gold. Corporate executives who celebrated Rathenau's murder applaud when SA units smash Jewish businesses. Economic power seamlessly transitions from Republic-destroying terror to Nazi-enabling collaboration. Legal precedents set during the Weimar murders provide justification for Nazi crimes. Judges who acquitted Organization Consul assassins on patriotic grounds use the same logic to excuse SS atrocities. Prosecutors who ignored right-wing violence apply selective justice to persecute regime enemies. The corruption of law enforcement during the Republic enables the complete destruction of legal protections under dictatorship. International observers who watched German democracy's assassination recognize the pattern when Nazi violence explodes across Europe. British diplomats who reported Weimar political murders predict worse horrors under Hitler. French intelligence officers who tracked Organization Consul networks warn of Nazi expansion plans. American journalists who documented Republican politicians' deaths prepare for World War II. The victims, families, suffer continuing persecution under Nazi rule. Rosa Luxemburg's relatives face harassment and deportation. Karl Liebknecht's children endure surveillance and intimidation. Matthias Erzberger's widow watches her husband's assassins receive state honors. The crimes of the Republic become the virtues of the dictatorship. Educational institutions that harbored nationalist violence during Weimar become Nazi indoctrination centers. Universities that expelled socialist professors welcome Nazi ideology courses. Student organizations that attacked Republican meetings transform into Hitler Youth chapters. The same young men who beat democratic activists to death in the 20s wear SS uniforms in the 30s. Cultural institutions that celebrated political assassination adapt to serve totalitarian propaganda. Theaters that staged plays glorifying Freikorps violence produce Nazi spectacles. Publishers who printed paramilitary memoirs distribute anti-Semitic literature. Movie studios that filmed Organization Consul heroes create Nazi propaganda films. The machinery of cultural violence upgrades to serve dictatorship. Religious institutions that provided moral cover for Weimar terror enable Nazi persecution. Priests who blessed paramilitary weapons consecrate SS daggers. Monasteries that sheltered Organization Consul assassins hide Nazi war criminals. Church hierarchies that ignored Republican victims. Suffering remains silent during Jewish deportations. Moral authority corrupted by political violence cannot resist totalitarian evil. The international business community that fled German political chaos during Weimar faces a starker choice under Nazi rule: collaborate or perish. Corporations that withdrew from assassination-plagued Germany returned to profit from slave labor. Banks that refused loans to terror-supporting industries financed Nazi war preparations. The same economic forces that enabled political murder now fund industrial genocide. Professional associations that split along political lines during Weimar become Nazi coordination tools. Legal organizations that expelled Republican lawyers bar Jewish colleagues. Medical societies that ostracize socialist doctors participate in Nazi euthanasia programs. Teacher groups that purge Democratic members implement Nazi curriculum. Professional ethics, corrupted by political violence, enables professional participation in atrocity. Labor unions, destroyed by systematic assassination, never recover their strength. Workers who lost their leaders to Weimar terror cannot resist Nazi labor controls. Industries that eliminated union organizers through murder impose Nazi workplace discipline without opposition. The destruction of working class leadership during the Republic enables totalitarian exploitation under dictatorship. The psychological climate created by years of political assassination prepares Germans for Nazi violence. Citizens who watch democratic politicians murdered in streets accept SA brutality as normal. Communities that ignored Republican victims' suffering remained passive during Jewish persecution. The normalization of political violence during Weimar enables the escalation to genocidal violence under Nazism. Intelligence networks built to coordinate Weimar terror transform into Nazi security apparatus. Police officers who collaborated with Organization Consul to join the Gestapo. Military intelligence personnel who tracked Republican politicians surveilled regime enemies. The same surveillance techniques used to hunt democratic leaders now monitor potential resistance. Weimar terror creates the infrastructure for Nazi control. Regional power structures that enabled Weimar assassinations provide foundations for Nazi administration. Bavarian officials who protected Organization Consul become Nazi governors. East Prussian landowners who sheltered assassins welcome SS colonization plans. Local authorities who ignored right-wing violence implement Nazi racial policies. The geography of terror remains constant while its targets expand. Medical professionals who documented Weimar terror victims' wounds treat Nazi persecution survivors. Doctors who recorded the deliberate cruelty of Organization Consul torture see similar patterns in concentration camp victims. The same sadistic creativity that marked political assassinations reappears in genocidal experiments. Violence escalates, but its essential character remains unchanged. The international press that struggled to comprehend Weimar political collapse faces an even greater challenge, reporting Nazi crimes. Journalists who documented the assassination of German democracy witnessed the murder of European civilization. The same correspondents who describe terror in Berlin streets report mass murder in Polish forests. Local violence becomes global catastrophe. Foreign intelligence services that tracked Weimar terror networks confront their Nazi successors on battlefields across Europe. British agents who monitored Organization Consul activities fight SS units in occupied territories. French officers who investigated German political murders participate in resistance operations. The men who destroyed democracy with assassination become the enemies of freedom everywhere. Today, historians count the full cost of Germany's descent into political violence. Every anti-war leader silenced during Weimar enabled Nazi aggression. Every democratic politician murdered weakened resistance to dictatorship. Every union organizer beaten to death eliminated potential opposition to tyranny. The road from Weimar terror to Nazi genocide runs straight through the bodies of Republic defenders. Today, historians count the cost. Every anti-war leader silenced. Every democratic politician murdered. Every union organizer beaten to death. They were not killed by foreign enemies. They were killed by fellow Germans who could not accept defeat, could not accept democracy, could not accept that their war had been lost and their empire destroyed. But here is what the killers never understood. In a cemetery in Berlin Friedrichshain, a simple monument marks the graves of the March martyrs. Every year, thousands gather to remember Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht. Their words outlived their murderers. Their ideas survived the terror. And in the end, the democracy they died for was reborn from the ashes of the dictatorship that killed them. The November criminals became the martyrs. The terrorists became the footnotes. History chose its heroes. In 1990, when the Berlin Wall fell, crowds gathered not at the graves of Freikorps leaders or Organization Consul members. They gathered at the memorial to Rosa Luxemburg. Because, in the end, those who fight for freedom are remembered. Those who murder for reaction are forgotten. The dead union leaders got the last word after all.